Hey, it's Drew, and I just finished recording an episode of Renegade Thinkers Unite with Jennifer Deutsch, CMO of Park Place Technologies. And if you're a B2B marketer, you're really going to want to listen to this episode because undoubtedly you come into a place where the CEO has said, hey, I want a new campaign. We're growing. There's lots of good things, but we need a new campaign. How do you do that in a way that's really going to make a difference? We break it down step by step, and you'll learn some things that might surprise you, that if your CEO says launch a new campaign without a new product, you might just want to push back or update that resume. So enjoy the show.
Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
My guest today is Jennifer Deutsch, CMO of Park Place Technologies, a company that you may not have heard of, but is pretty well known among IT professionals as the place for service and support of your data center equipment after it goes off warranty. We're going to hear a lot more about that from Jennifer in a second. But what intrigued me about Jennifer is the diversity of her professional experience and personal interests. Starting her career at Nestle, she went on to work on other major brands like Marriott and spent more than a decade on the agency side working for Donor. On a personal front, she finds time for cycling and gardening, which we're going to talk about, raising two sons while sitting on several boards like the Cleveland Film Commission, the Cognitive Health Institute, and most recently co-founding Future Vision, a not-for-profit organization founded in memory of her father that promotes medical innovation and the visual arts. Given all of these commitments, we probably should do an entire episode on time management, but instead we're going to be talking about how you can grow your business if you're a B2B marketer. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thanks so much, Drew. Appreciate it. And what a nice introduction. Thank you.
My pleasure. So on this episode, I'm happy to introduce a new segment called Renegade Rapid Fire, in which we get to know the guest really fast. Jennifer, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready, Drew.
Okay, here we go. What's your definition of marketing?
To find the aha of the brand, to identify and define the key differentiator that differentiates your brand from the competitive set. And then very, very quickly, you can come up with communication that delivers that message very simply and easily to the target audience.
What is the primary role of the CMO?
Innovation. Innovation and chief head of communication.
Okay. What's your favorite part of the job?
Innovation.
What's your least favorite part of the job?
Chasing people around.
What are your top priorities in the first 100 days as a CMO?
So this is a great time to ask me because I've been at Park Place now for 10 months. And when I arrived, I really looked at the first 30, 60, and 90 days. And immediately I wanted to make an impact, but I also wanted to establish the vision and create that pathway to get there. I also wanted to elevate the work that we were doing.
What's the best advice you were ever given?
The best advice I was ever given is that the most important thing is your reputation. It's all you really have.
It's so true. It's so true, and it so helps if you think about it early in your career. What's your proudest moment as a marketer?
My proudest moment was when I was the marketing manager for Stouffer's French Bread Pizza. We had a major aha moment when we were doing some research. And that led to us becoming partners with the NBA. And we were the smallest partner with the NBA as Stouffer's French Bread Pizza. And we had the biggest impact, and we significantly grew the brand as a result of our partnership with the NBA.
Very cool. Now, was Stouffer's was that a frozen product, right?
Yeah, it was Stouffer's French bread pizza, which is frozen.
Right. Well, it's funny because my wife and I were working at different agencies. This goes back to the 80s. I was working on Sara Lee Baked Goods, and she was working on Pepperidge Farm. We felt like we had the corner, on that. It was a very funny moment. Anyway, as a marketer, What brand do you admire the most?
Apple.
You know, we were talking about Apple today, and they're starting to be annoying. You know, with their simplicity of the things that you can plug in. You buy a new Apple computer and there are no ports. It's really annoying. But the brand is amazing. Sometimes they forget about their computers and the users, because I keep wondering, have any of these people used a computer? I hope you're listening, Apple. Okay. Here's an important question. Will machines ever be able to do your job?
Machines won't be able to replace marketers. Machines will be able to replace other folks. And it's interesting that you're asking that question to me, because we just launched a new product called Parkview, where we are using machine learning, which basically translates into artificial intelligence. So machines are learning so that we are able to take folks who are actually working at data centers, IT folks, and change their responsibilities, give them more important, greater value add. So we have a new product that is actually freeing people up in the data center, but we will not be able to have machines who will replace marketers.
And why do you think that's the case?
Because we need to have an awful lot of innovation and forward thinking, and it's the human brain that evaluates how people are perceiving the brand. And I'll segue into say that, you know, what we're doing here at Park Place is we are a brand that is helping our customers. So we are future-proofing our customers so that we're preparing them for any type of technology that's going to come their way.
It sounds like the machines are managing the machines. It's getting to be sort of a little Skynet-like over there at Park Place. And in some ways, right, the machines are sort of looking at the machines and learning the machines and figuring out how things are going, which makes a lot of sense.
Right. So machine learning is that the machines are identifying trends. And for our new product called Parkview, that machine learning is actually helping us to be able to predict failure. So this is proactive maintenance. So before something breaks, we know from machine learning what the signs are of something that's about to break. So before it breaks, we send the parts and we send an engineer to do the replacement and do the fix before it breaks. And that actually delivers uptime for a data center. And uptime is the most important word in data centers, because when your data center goes down, you have a major problem. So our whole campaign that we recently launched is called All About Uptime. And that for us was for me was an aha moment when I joined the firm, that everything we do is to drive uptime. And so with this new product, if we're able to use machine learning to prevent any downtime whatsoever, that's a win. And by the way, nobody else can do it. Nobody else is using machine learning or AI in the category.
One of the things that I think is really applicable to lots of marketers out there is if you can anticipate a product breaking. I have this complaint with Spectrum, the cable guys, because they know our boxes are getting old, right? They're getting old, which means it's slowing and you can't record as many shows. And they're sitting there with right there nearby with the newer machines, which will make their experience better. The fact is they could replace those automatically, right? As they're starting to, whether it's a modem or some other thing. And I think lots of businesses could anticipate their customer needs a lot more. And so the fact that this anticipation that you're doing is it's not just a marketing claim, it's you're building it into your product and your service, makes it all the more believable and real.
Right. Well, let me take you back to my days at Ritz-Carlton. At Ritz-Carlton, part of our brand positioning was anticipatory service. And the way that we were able to anticipate a guest's needs is to go back and look at their history. So way back when, we used to have 12 women sitting in Bethesda, Maryland, who literally looked at records of charge to see trends for individuals. And literally, we would build a profile. Well, today, we don't need to look at records of charge and to look at what you did when you were in the room. There's some automation to that. And so in the business that I'm in today, anticipating the needs of a data center is happening through machine learning. So think about, my days at Ritz-Carlton 20 years ago versus today where machines are talking. And those machines are able to alert us when something in advance is going to go down, as to really looking through records of charge to anticipate the needs of a guest or the wants of a guest to be able to deliver an extraordinary experience. So we are, at Park Place, delivering an extraordinary experience that nobody else in this category can deliver. And that's because of our technology.
Very cool. Okay, last question in rapid fire. We've sort of gotten off track there, but last question. What would you do if you weren't a marketer?
I'd be a farmer.
Love it. Lots? Why? Just out of curiosity?
I think it isn't a far stretch, because the bottom line is today, we have ideas, and we take ideas, we nourish them. We have a brand, we nourish and feed the brand, so the brand grows and develops. When you're a farmer, it's the same thing. Growing plants, feeding it, nourishing it, and then harvesting the fruit. And I think in marketing, it's the exact same thing. And I'll tell you that our harvest is when we look at the data and we see the numbers.
Well, speaking of nourishing, that is one of the goals of Renegade Thinkers Unite, and we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to nourish your minds on how to build a brand.
You've been listening to another great interview on Renegade Thinkers Unite with Drew Neiser. But the value doesn't end there. As a listener, you can download a free ebook from Drew, Renegade Thinkers, interviews with 11 trailblazing CMOs any business can learn from. Top marketing thought leaders and proven executives from Time Warner, American Express, and Chico's, and others. Get your free copy at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook. For listeners only at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook.
Okay, we're back, and my guest is Jennifer Deutsch, CMO of Park Place Technologies. And in the intro, we talked a lot about, Jennifer revealed her brand and Uptime. Let's go back a bit and break it down. How did you get to this idea? What was the process?
It's this on every single brand that I ever worked on, it's the same answer on how we got to the aha. It's listening. It's speaking to the end user, whether you're in the B2C or B2B space. So speaking to the consumer, the customer, the client, the end user, and then also talking to your salespeople. I mean, I spent an awful lot of time talking to salespeople and an awful lot of time talking to consumers. And I had mentioned before that one of my proudest moments was on Stouffer's French bread pizza. And that was because we did an A&U, and we spoke to users in French bread pizza. And we came up with the huge aha moment, which was when they were eating the product, what they were watching, when they were watching, who they were watching it with, and what we got to was basketball, after dinner, NBA. So, for Park Place, it was listening and hearing the opportunity. And what everybody talked about was eliminating downtime. And so eliminating downtime is driving uptime. And our campaign is all about uptime, is making sure that data centers are up and running, because downtime is very expensive.
So you come up with the language all about uptime. Then what was the process for communicating this internally and externally?
Well, and in any campaign that I've ever done, once we have the seed of an idea, we translate it into a campaign. So we work with our agency to do that. The next step is the internal campaign, the inspiration, the why, what it means, and then how we're going to communicate it externally and what we believe the results of that external communication will be. So, for example, at Park Place Technologies, we launched All About Uptime, our campaign, in tandem with launching Parkview, which is our new product, and we did it at Gartner in Las Vegas in December. And when we had our booth up and everything was all about uptime, we had people stopping by our booth telling us that they saw the word uptime and were propelled to our booth because their job is keeping their data centers running. I'll tell you that we teased Gartner quite a bit. So we did communication before the launch, and it was all about how we have you covered from head to toe. And so we basically prepared packages with hats and socks, and everything was all about uptime. Gartner had never seen such a flood to any one particular booth or to any speaking session in the history of Gartner. In fact, Gartner debriefed with us afterwards to find out what we did to drive so much excitement and generate excitement. And I'll attribute it to the fact that we were very vigilant about the way that we promoted before the event, at the event, and then ongoing. And then we did an awful lot of analysis kind of post-show and then ongoing communication from there. But, to double back to answer your question, there's an awful lot of internal communication that goes on before we do the external communication.
How long did you spend with the internal launch?
We take about a month to train everybody, and the training is global. So, for example, when we launch a campaign, on day one, everybody will walk in across the globe to the office, and all the creative will be up. The very next day, we do training with our sales force globally. So, for example, I will go to an office, let's call it Denver. My guy in the UK will do training in UK. We'll have somebody. So in every single office, there is live sales training. And then they have 2 to 3 weeks to spend working with the materials. We prepare everything for them. Everybody's got a PowerPoint. Everybody's got a deck to walk through. So it's about a month of internal training then we go live with the external communication.
How do you know that that's enough, that the employees have got the idea of the campaign?
We ask a lot of questions. We do a lot of follow-up.
Okay. So we've launched it internally. We've got them on board. The salespeople know. And then you take it, what's the next step after the internal launch?
So after the internal launch, we literally kick off the campaign. So at Park Place, the elements of the campaign will be digital. We'll have the campaign up on our website. We also do an awful lot of direct mail. So it's digital and direct mail, and then we also have timed email blasts going out to a very, very large database. And we start to track leads, and we start to track responses.
You mentioned leads, so let's talk about that for a moment. Let's talk about what percentage of leads does marketing drive relative to, say, the sales group?
Marketing drives 90% of the leads.
Wow, that's a big number. How do you do that?
It is a big number. So we really have a very interesting recipe, and the recipe includes heavy PR. Quicken is our public relations firm, and they do a phenomenal job for us, and we do global PR. We do an awful lot of SEO. We do an awful lot of digital. And we measure our leads on a daily basis, and we have leads coming in from all over the world. The number one source for us, though, is the web.
Okay, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to just dive into a few of the particulars that Jennifer brought up.
Hey, it's Drew. I have a question for you, the audience. How good is your content? We all believe in content marketing, but is your content good enough for you to share it with the CEO and want him to share it with his peers? Is it good enough for your salespeople to share with their prospects? Heck, is it good enough for you to share it with your mom? If the answer to all of those questions was no, well, it's not that good, and you're also celebrating things like National Donut Day, it's probably a good idea to do a content audit. And I know just the person to help you out with that. Text Content Audit to 917-679-8852. That's actually my cell phone. And we can talk about how to get your content to be world class and do all the things that you know it should be able to do. So you can text Content Audit to 917-679-8852. And let's figure out together how to get your content to cut through.
Okay, we're back, and we're going to wrap up this episode with Jennifer Deutsch, CMO of Park Place Technologies. So far, a number of things have come up that I just want to reiterate that are so interesting and so important, but often overlooked. So you talked about your strategy, finding that aha moment, something kind of simple and easy to understand. And I will note the simple is hard, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Then when you launched this product, you didn't just launch it internally and then externally. You launched it big. And I'm sorry, I want to make one point of clarity. It wasn't just words. You had a new product which brought the idea to life. And I want to emphasize that big time. If you just launch a campaign and there is no new product, in some ways you're just, you're gilding the lily. You're not doing something that will change perceptions. If you want to change perceptions, you have to change something fundamental about your offering. So here they are, they're talking all about Uptime, and guess what? They have a product that they launch that helps deliver on that promise. That 1-2 punch is really something that one could overlook and is really essential because customers are too smart to sort of say, hey, we got this new campaign, it's all about Uptime. If it was just the words, would it have worked?
I don't think so. I think it always a campaign needs to be paired with a claim and an offer. And I can tell you, that anytime that I have launched a brand, launched a product, there has been significant differentiation so that it is absolutely apparent that this is very different. And I go back to lean cuisine. It was lean and it was lean food, low calories and tasted great. It reinvented the category. People were eating lean cuisine because it tasted good and the benefits were in the calories. When I worked for a bank, we had a line, bank smart, live better. Very simple. If you were smart about the way you banked, you could live better because you had more money in your bank account. And with Park Place Technologies, it's also very simple. Is that we're all about uptime. And for those in the space, uptime is everything. Because if you have downtime, if you're down and you're running the data center, you're out of luck.
You mentioned Gartner earlier and the big Gartner event. How important these days is it and that must have provided some credibility because Gartner is certainly another brand that's recognized, but Gartner's famous for its quadrants and its ratings and so forth. Is that still an important part of the decision tree? Is it worth having Gartner on your side?
I cannot tell you how important Gartner is in our industry. And I was never in an industry that utilized Gartner. The more I learn about Gartner, the more I appreciate them. They are a phenomenal resource and tool for anybody in the category. And I'll say that their events are learning events. It's worth every minute and every penny.
It wasn't just a trade show. You were perhaps hoping for a halo that brand brings.
That's true. The other piece that was essential for us and the icing on the cake is that the Gartner events bring key decision makers. It was the best possible scenario to be with your target audience, to literally have key decision makers there. I will tell you, before we went to Gartner, we actually launched Parkview at our own technology summit, the Park Place Technology Summit in the UK. And so we launched it in the UK first. We did so much pre-work to attract people to our summit. It was beyond belief, and we had a fabulous attendance. Interestingly enough, Gartner actually came to attend our event in the UK.
Okay. As you look at this effort, you talked about 90% of the leads are coming from marketing, which is a lot. How that implies that you must be driving a lot of people into the website, capturing those names, and then somehow or other nurturing and qualifying them in order that they become sort of sales qualified leads. I just condensed a lot of marketing technology then very quickly. But is that what's happening? Is that you have, through this campaign, generated so much awareness and interest that prospects are coming into the website?
Yes. And I'll tell you that it's been very interesting for us. We're a global company, and the impact that PR is having on our brand. In Asia, it's given an incredible lift. the number of leads that we see coming in from Asia is directly related to when an article is published. So that was very interesting learning on our end. And as more people become aware of us and the benefits, I mean, here's what I'll tell you, that we're literally promoting at Park Place a better experience in the OEM. In other words, you can continue having service from the OEM, but the reality is you're going to have a better experience with us, that our engineers actually have 15 to 30 years OEM experience and training. And on top of it, we're adding additional value to it. So for example, nobody else brings the technology like a Parkview forward. We have service guarantees. We bring an extra special experience at 50% of the cost. So think about that. You're getting a better experience. You're getting added technology at half the cost.
So that's original equipment manufacturers. And again, so you understand what we're talking about here. You have a data center. You have equipment in the data center. That data center could be Dell. It could be a bunch of different companies. Dell offers a warranty for 2 or 3 years. When that goes off warranty, Park Place Technologies steps in. Is that a fair summary?
You could be our spokesperson, Drew. That was terrific.
Thank you. I'm in the job, in the business of trying to keep things simple, but we know that simple is hard, right? Were there some that said all about uptime was too simplistic? What about all the speeds and feeds and all that other stuff?
No one said all about uptime is too simplistic, because in this space, it is all about uptime. And I think that simplicity here is the real genius in our communication, that IT folks gravitated to it. I mean, I had a guy come up to me who was the CTO and said, uptime is the most important word in our industry. And I think that's true. And I think that, every once in a while as a marketer, you capture lightning in a bottle. I have been very lucky in my career that I've done it a couple times. And I will tell you that all about uptime is lightning in the bottle for our category. It absolutely very quickly communicates what we're all about. And we launched a campaign that very, very quickly communicates exactly what we're doing. We've got headlines that read, been there, fixed that, so that people understand literally that our engineers are trained and expert at what they're doing. And again, our number one competition is the OEM.
Yeah, you're actually competing with the people who put the product there in the first place. And just curious, from an SEO standpoint, if I search uptime, will you guys come up?
I certainly hope so.
That's a whole nother world. I'm increasingly fascinated by it. We work with one of our media partners is Dragon 360, and we actually had them go through and do an SEO study on our site, so we understood what they did, and it's just an amazing art form in and of itself. Okay, so as we wrap up this episode, I'm quite curious, what were the biggest lessons learned for you in this process?
In the process of creating the brand for Park Place?
Yeah, I mean, is there something that you sort of look back and go, I've had this process that I've used for a long time, but we tweaked it here because this was something new that you learned as a result of doing this?
I think that what I learned in this particular case, because my background really has been in CPG and dealing in the B2C space. So this was a different experience for me. When I was a donor, we did a lot of B2B work, but this was a very different audience. And the target audience, I would always tell people we need to understand what makes the target audience tick. And this was a very different target audience. This was a high-tech, very sophisticated, very smart target audience. And golf didn't do it, and tennis didn't do it. And so we really needed to figure out what was going to make this audience tick. And I think we got it. And it is speaking their language, and it is additional technology. And so for everything we do at every trade show, every piece that we communicate, it really is about the technology and giving them more. So for example, that we're positioning ourselves as helping our customers be future-proof. That's huge. and that's what they need and that's what they want. So that was my big learning, that it was a very different target audience with very different needs and very different interests. And Drew, when I was a donor, one of the things that we always did is we had a process that I developed specifically at my office, which was for every client, we had a session called claim generation, where we would generate claims for the brand that we could literally put the stake in the ground. And so I think that's a great technique to really help you hone on what's different so you can make a claim and your brand can back it up. And I think that's a great way to be able to communicate, because if you can say it and blast it out there, the brand has to be able to deliver.
And that's a great place for us to, for me, to attempt to wrap up the episode as I want to do, to provide a couple of highlights for folks as you're thinking about this. So let's start with the notion that you are a company and you have competitors. Number one, try to find a position that you can own that's important and can be communicated in a simple fashion. I love all about Uptime and its ability to surround all sorts of things in terms of communications. It's an easy thing to get around, get your mind around. But the other part, and I'm going to reemphasize this, is if your CEO says, give me a new campaign, but he won't give you a new product, you're at the wrong company. Because it's not going to make a big deal. You're just putting a coat of paint on it. Marketing can be real when it is real, right? When you do something, not when you say something. It becomes real when you do something. And what I love about this idea, and if you break down so many different things to learn here, find a big place and a credible place to launch it. They did it internally, but they did it also at Gartner, which gave tremendous credibility to the offering. But you also did it in a very clever and creative way, and that speaks to the fact that we don't think that machines are going to replace the CMO role just yet. There were lots of other little things, but I think that's the big picture of this episode. Jennifer, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Drew.
And for all the renegades out there, all you renegade thinkers, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to share this episode with your friends, write reviews, send me comments, and until next time, keep those renegade thinking caps on and strong.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.